Shinji has decided the fate of humankind by choking Asuka. He has brought the end of the world, a world that in his mind has rejected him long enough. This is followed by bizarre drawings. These have different meanings depending on how you see them, on what they mean to you, self-perception. However, most of them seem to have something in common: violence. This is a portrayal of Shinji's weak state of mind, if any at this point of the process. Rei talks to Shinji while we see images of the show. Shinji says that she has betrayed his feelings, just before an image of Kaoru appears, who he felt betrayed him also in episode 24. Then a recreation of what we just saw in Misato's kitchen, while Rei tells Shinji that he was wrong all along, the ways he expected people to behave. That is the reason why he is in this situation. He oversaw other people's needs and wants, their unique personalities and drives, just to satisfy his own, expecting everyone to behave as he wanted them to behave. Devastated by the cruelty of instrumentality, Shinji wishes his own death. He wants all these feelings to stop, to go away, as we see red souls appear. Then we see images of his hands while Rei asks him about their purpose. With the same hands he protected his friends and the world. But for Shinji, all of that doesn't matter anymore. No matter what he does, the outcome will be always the same: others rejecting him. But that is not entirely true. Shinji did develop emotional relationships. He did have good and loyal friends, people that loved him and died for him. But he can't see that. He is too blind by his weakness. We are shown the moment that will define Shinji's personality forever. The moment he was sent away by his father, while asking if it was right for him to be there, if he should exist. Silence, because no one has that answer, only himself, and through instrumentality he might find it. Shinji screams trying to forget everything, and we are taken back to reality. Aoba and Hyuga let us know the severity of the situation. The next stage is ready. 80 fields can now disappear. The black moon floating upwards while Lilith grows and deploys her wings. The once introvert invisible girl known as Rei Ayanami is now bigger than everyone else. Kozo affirms that Gulf is open. There is nothing they can do now to stop it. Lilith opens holes in her hands, calls on humankind to renounce their individualities, and starts collecting the souls. A severed arm holding a phone, communication. And given the context and that the arm belonged to a GSSSTF soldier, it can be argued that the last form of communication that Lilims tried in this story was war. Quantum Rei, who made her first appearance at the beginning of the story and has already appeared before in this movie, because this Rei represents Lilith, and Lilith is the mother of all of the Lilims. So as a mother who gave birth to their children, she ought to be present to take them away, to be less painful and traumatic. And it's because for her children, it's not Rei. That is not what they see. What they see is actually their most beloved one. This is crucial for the process, as Shinji did before with Kaoru. Lowering the AT field willingly is less painful, and humans open up to people they love dearest. So you can argue that this is an act of mercy by Rei. She's giving them a choice. We can see this when Hyuga sees Misato in front of him. He knows it's impossible, but that is the person he loves deeply and succumbs to his desires. With Aoba, however, it's different. It's just a bunch of Reis. There is no one that he opens up to, so Rei will take his individuality by force. Now, it is fair to say that we do not know much of Aoba, so it would have made no sense to put a random face there if that person he opens up to exists. But I'm inclined to believe that this was intentional and works to contrast that in case you live in a bubble and you love no one, instrumentality still will get you. We witness how Kozo sees Yui, like this goddess that appeared floating above him, this beautiful angel he's in love with. He knows what is happening, and as if Gendo, has been able to find Yui, because he certainly did. Finally, Maya, who cannot see beyond her computer, that is her life, her work, only one person really matters, her senpai Ritsuko, who appears from behind. She turns and smiles, kicks the computer aside because at the end, your work, your career, it really doesn't matter when compared to the ones you love dearest. Hugs her and disappears. We are unveiled what Ritsuko wrote on Maya's computer. That made her so happy. I need you. At Cele, the angry men who have reasons to be happy also are being absorbed by Lilith. We are shown Lawrence remains, and we are revealed that he had a bunch of cyborgs part. This could be an indication that the leader of Cele was way older than he seemed, but still has some humanity left on him to be accepted by Lilith. For Gendo, however, another fate waits. He will be judged for his deeds by his wife, Kaoru and Rei, the three pillars of this process, all of them looking from above to a defeated Gendo who lies on the ground. He can see Yui, and a warming Yui. She's not angry, she just wants to hear him out and the reasons on why he decided against her wishes regarding Shinji. He says that every time he is close to his son, he hurts him, the hedgehog dilemma. He's very well aware of what he has done, as he lays it down to Yui impeccably. Gendo was afraid of becoming a father, but at the same time he was looking forward to become one. As long as Yui was there, everything will be fine. He even decided his unborn child's name. If a boy, Shinji. If a girl, then she will be Rei. But that didn't turn out that way, as for Yui disappeared, and Gendo was afraid of Shinji, of being a father. He decided to send him away, trying to get rid of that feeling, but he held to the idea of reuniting with his wife, whom he knew wasn't dead. And for a long time he had to live with that idea of having her there, but at the same time, not having her. And by holding to that feeling, he destroyed Shinji's life, and created a clone that had under close surveillance for years, destroying then another life. The arguments given by Gendo are very similar to those by Shinji, because Gendo and Shinji are pretty much the same, like father like son. But Shinji is still young, he can still change. But Gendo has been acting like this for years now. A lot of victims on his path. Gendo accepts his retribution and asks his son for forgiveness. There is no instrumentality for him, no bright light above him, no flying goddess, but a monster that devours him. All of this with red background, pain. Rei 2 picks up his glasses, because even though that Rei 3 was very angry at him and consumed her revenge, Rei 2 did have feelings for the man who saw as her father and will not quit on him. She just won't let him go. All of this was seeing these three Reis in front of what remained of him. And then we have a bunch of suggesting noises and reaction by these Rei face MPs while impaling themselves reaching to ecstasies. They have fulfilled their role, and Lilith doesn't need them anymore. The sequence shows how all of the inhabitants of the world lose their human form to turn into LCL, and all of the souls go back to Lilith through the Black Moon. Then a third eye is opened in Lilith's forehead, and the Tree of Life introduces itself with Shinji within into Lilith. Shinji sees what is happening inside, a bunch of Reis swimming around, and then he mentions her name. By doing so, these look at him, and all of a sudden change their faces to one of Shinji with Rei's body. Now this can be interpreted in many ways. You may argue that Shinji has conflict on perceiving himself as a man, or even that his true desires was to be a girl. But it also could be simpler than that, as for it could only be a reference to Anno's previous work, and that could explain why this is unique and we do not see this again in Neon Genesis Evangelion. According to Sadamoto in volume 2 of his manga, Shinji's design is pretty much the same as his Nadia, from Nadia the Secret of Blue Water. So this could be a reference to Anno's previous work. Sadamoto also stated that when Anno pitched him the idea, the main character of Evangelion was going to be a girl, quote-unquote Asuka-like. But Sadamoto convinced Anno to turn the MC into a boy instead, as it was more appropriate for a mega story. Thus, in my opinion, this is only a reference to that. As for we don't see any other reference of Shinji perceiving himself in a different gender than his own, but only in this rare occasion. This should not be confused with his sexual orientation, but that is for another video. Shinji then sees images that we find familiar, as they are from previous experiences, but they are out of focus, overlapped, flipped, and combined with similar voices. Other than himself, we can also hear Misato and Asuka. All of this with the exit sign in the middle. Escapism. Instrumentality is as he speaks. Shinji is finding them in the LCL. He can perceive how Misato and Rei tells him that he can stop anytime he wants, and asks him to come together with them, to become one. All of this with pleasuring noises in the background. Some hidden imagery that includes no so family-oriented content, so I cannot show all of them, including a real shot of a woman's body part, who is likely to belong to Maiko Yuki, an idol and adult entertainer popular in Japan in the mid-90s. Then Asuka breaks this by saying that she prefers to die than to be with him. And I open up and we break the fourth wall. We are in the real world now. The boring world that anime fans and otakus want to escape from. Movie theaters, communication lines, trains, to end up with a bunch of EVA fans dying of boredom. Now this was real. This recording was taken by Anno secretly during one of the showings of Death and Rebirth, the movie that was released few months before the end of Evangelion, and I went over that in my first video of this series. So by doing this, Anno wanted to portray how you, the EVA fan, the anime fan, the otaku, look like in real life. A boring and depressing individual, you may think. As for the imagery, is carefully put in a way to look as such. In the real world, there is an Asuka, Rei and Misato, who we see their voices, or seiyus, in the middle of a crowd, and their voices ask Shinji about dreams, followed by the three girls dressed in their anime-inspired outfits. They could also be mannequins, as we see from this behind-of-stage picture. Shinji is starting to understand the severity of the situation, and what he has done, not only to himself but to everyone else, and this conversation gets to an end when Rei states that this is the end of his dream. Now, all of the live-action sequence is crucial to understand Anno's message, and this can be interpreted in many ways, depending on how you perceive things. The general consensus in simple terms is that Anno wanted to tell his audience that there is a world out there that you are missing by spending countless hours in fantasy, by escaping reality, pushing your real problems aside for long periods of time because you want to lose yourself in these imaginary worlds. Because this is what Shinji is realizing. In his dream world, there is no one but himself. And when this dream ends, he has to return to reality and face it. Shinji severs Lilith's head. It's time to cut ties with the mothers and become independent. His next step will be putting an end to the instrumentality he began. We will retake it from here in my next installment, as we take a closer look to the end of Evangelion. Remember to like the video if you did, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, guys. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always I wish you a wonderful day.